will not build. It has nothing to do with conjecture. It has to do with the laws of the land of physical structure and so forth, which he submitted to when he came. So this morning we want to talk about the laws of the horse. Now, in every generation, whether they're youth or teen or adult, there are certain fundamental principles that cross-section all of us. And they have to do with the biblical principles of faith, virtue, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly kindness, and love. So I'm going to take this horse because we use those same fundamentals in working a horse. And the first fundamental is simply the fact that I am. Now, because I am, this horse has some responsibility to me, but if he doesn't know me, if he's never been haltered, he's going to paw me, bite me, fight me, something because I have a constraint on him. I asked Hattie for a horse that was halter broke, so we're not starting with a horse that's never been handled. We're starting with a horse that's been raised by a loving family and nurtured that way. I don't know if she raised him, but acquired him somewhere along the line. So he's a friendly kind of a colt. But he's still dumber than a hoe handle. Okay, just because he's nice doesn't make him able to do certain things. And all of us need to learn. Not just skills, but we need to learn obedience. Even Jesus, although he was a son, yet learned he obedience to the things which he suffered. So obedience is the first training method. Okay? Now in the process, we use three principles to establish that, called go, whoa, and grow. So the first thing I'm going to do, instead of leading this horse like people do with the rein and pulling him, I'm going to lead him with the opposite side. Because we're going to learn that wisdom always is opposite to our first inclination. Now God has one goal for you and for me, and I have one goal for this horse. Only one goal. And it has something to do with why the sun, see how this colt pushes on me. It may be because of the noise, the crowd, but he pushes on me because he's rude and he's self-centered. But he doesn't think of himself as the center. He just thinks of himself, and suddenly and then he would take off. And if I didn't have a lead rope, we'd be chasing a horse already. We may be before long anyhow. You see, he doesn't value me. So the first principle of faith is missing. Listen, friends, there's only two objects of faith, and faith must always have an object. It's either God Almighty, it's either the trainer, or it's the horse. One of us has to be in charge. One of us has to put our trust in something. And so this horse is not that he's wicked and evil and has killed certain people. It's just that he's so dumb, he doesn't know how dumb he is. He should have come to me and said, Lew is here. Right? Why are you laughing at that? That's disgusting. Hello. Why? Because he doesn't see any value in Lew than many of you newcomers. Why? He doesn't know me. And that's the problem with God, is if we don't know God, we don't know our sin nature, and we don't know our need for God. So there's something I have to do to establish my presence and my authority in this horse's life. And now we're using a large arena. Normally I might start in a small arena. But in order to give you a reference point, I'm going to tell you about how I communicate with the horse. Number one, everything about the horse's face deals with behavior. You can control behavior in people groups. That's why they have tyrannical leaders who can control behavior. You can silence opposition, especially if you have enough duct tape to put on their mouth, that kind of stuff. So you can control behavior. We've done it through religious circles all our lives, and we think is the goal, to make people behave. And God is bigger than behavior. So you can put a halter on a horse and you can tie him to a snubbing post or anything else, and sooner or later physical force will rule. Secondly, has to do with the shoulder of the horse. And this horse, you see, when he pushes on me, he steps on my feet, he pushes on his shoulder, because he's got a real problem here with his shoulder. He crowds me. Stinking horse, I'm telling you. It's like having a salesman with bad breath right here. You just want to punch him, you know what I mean? Because he has no concept of space.
Joking.
No concept of respect. He has no concept of boundaries. So his insecurity, his self-centeredness, cause him to trespass by stepping on my feet or in my space, and he transgresses or trespasses without any even knowledge of it. And the third thing has to do with their hip, with their heart. Now their physical heart isn't back here, but as you're going to see this morning, the goal is to reach this part first. And see, he stepped on my foot right there. And so he's always offensive. So what we're going to do is learn the way we establish authority is by, first of all, movement. So I need to teach the horse to move. So I'm going to take him in my left hand. I'm going to raise my cue stick like this. And the moment he doesn't pay attention, I'm going to tap him. Tap? Oh, yeah. You see, I've already asked him 2 other times. Really? Yeah, here's ask. Here's tell. There, picked up. Here's ask. Here's tell. Good. So it's ask, tell, kill. I mean, a command. And that's a fundamental scriptural principle. Even nature proves, if you watch nature, a lion guarding his territory, they'll mark it, first of all, that's the ask. See how this horse crowds me? Now, I don't like that, but I only pick one fight at a time. Stinking horse just pushes on me. He's rude. He's self-centered. You can only pick one mountain to die on at a time. So the only mountain I pick is go. And I teach him the importance of obedience. Because if he goes too fast, I can step back and control him maybe this way a little bit. Or I can, see there, he's reacting. Notice that he's always keeping the back door open. See, every child is so self-centered that they learn to lie and be sneaky because they don't really want their heart exposed. And so when I go back for his hit, notice how he goes, he backs up more. Okay? So you see, it's not just movement we want. It's not just obedience we want. Whoa! It's movement in a direction. Even Jonah was moving, just headed the wrong direction. But you can only train a horse that's moving. God will often use a rebel headed in the wrong direction than a saint who's sitting in their seat. Why? Because he looks for movement, because that expresses the opportunity to be in authority. So I'm going to first of all use the go, and I'm going to use the word whoa, because these are the fundamentals of child training. In a day and age when we have all kinds of technology, we find parents reasoning with their children about what they want to eat, what time they want to go to bed, what options they want to have. Stupid parents. A child doesn't have the ability to make those decisions until 7 or 8 till certain hormones come into their brain. Mm-hmm. And so we think, well, it's offensive, it's politically correct to teach a child like you teach a dog. Come. Whoa. Sit. Stay. Lest we be deceived from the simplicity of the gospel, because you see, when we reason with our children, we are going back to the Garden of Eden and we're setting the tree of knowledge, a personal choice above obedience to our spirit. And we teach the horse that virtue is more important than knowledge. He doesn't have to understand. Notice that I'm starting to set boundaries, and the more I set boundaries, the more he leaks out the back. Because this horse is a hopeless sinner. He always reserves for himself the right to have the final decision. See that? And you see, wisdom that's supposed to enter our hearts, the reason God set time in our life, he wants us to present to him a heart of wisdom. And wisdom starts with fear. It starts with understanding there are boundaries notice how he runs to me, like it runs over me, because the moment you ask him to obey, he starts pouting or throwing temper tantrums. And so it's going to take some time to understand that how to rest. He's not resting at all in limitations. Well, the goal right here. You see, there's only 2 things a horse wants to do in life. And he learned them from teenagers. To eat and to do nothing. To get paid for it. Mm-hmm. You see, this horse basically wants to do nothing in life, but he wants to be left alone. The problem is he wants to be left alone over there doing his own thing. And I need to realize that the only place you're going to have peace, because my goal is to so ruin his concept of peace, the absence of responsibility, the absence of duty, the ability to make yourself deaf to a call, or able to rebel. I need to make him to realize that he rests only in obedience. So first of all, you teach a truth, then you testicle, and then you get him to have a triumph. So you see when he closes back, and then he runs over me. Stinking horse. You see, I know that's going to happen. Why? Because horses have 3 sin gates. Actually, they have 3 violation gates. Whoa. Sin, back door. Iniquity, front door. Transgression, side door. So you see how he crowds me when he's insecure? So you say, well, the only thing it yields security, this horse has two needs just like you and I have, the need for significance and the need for security. This horse can never be secure without consistent boundaries. Now, in nature, they establish them by peck order. And the older horse comes in first. If Junior walks out there, now I'm going to start to work on the word grow. Okay? So I got go. By the way, there are only 3 answers to prayer. Go, whoa, yes, no. And you notice I use a physical fence to stop my horse. Why? Because no is never enough. Children need to fall on the floor. Children need to have some pain. Even the word hot doesn't mean anything to them unless they associate it with something that you... See that? So I start to build respect, obedience, and then attentiveness. And so we start to get this colt, but he still crowds me on the side. Notice he goes forward, but he crowds me. Now, for you dear sun watchers, I'm coming to your side. How you got the bleachers on that side is because you're newcomers. That's why. Notice that he over-exaggerates. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Major on the majors. I got a lot of issues with his shoulder and his crowding and his attitude, but I can only get one thing at a time, and I need to make sure that he becomes a believer, that I'm a rewarder, not a punisher. But the first thing I did is made him get up this morning, and then he crowds me, and so I keep it simple. Go, and I don't even stop him here until I hit a physical fence. Whoa. 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 The problem with familiarity is it breeds contempt. And too much distance breeds a lack of fear, breeds self-righteousness. So there's a healthy relationship in proximity. You must be, then you don't reward your horses. Listen, you have to understand a couple things. Number one, the only thing that changes a horse is the reward. I never reward my horses until they reward themselves. So now that he rests, because the highest reward isn't my patting him, it's not my turning him out. It's him understanding that when he hears my voice and obeys my command, he gets a reward. Right there it is. Rest. You see, we are to bring the kingdom of peace into a world that has no peace. Children cannot establish peace in their own heart. That's why they cry and act out, so that their parent who loves them will come in and set boundaries and help them be secure again and settle and be at peace again so they can play happily. Children cannot do that on their own, and this colt cannot do that on his own. So I need to be the peacemaker. And peace is not an absence of conflict. Peace is not an absence of boundaries. Peace is the benefit of boundaries and conflict wisely resolved. So I notice that he starts to change a little bit about this part, the attitude. But stinking horse. So I'm going to start to work on his attitude. So watch. The hardest part of training a horse has nothing to do with the horse. The hardest part of parenting has nothing to do with the kids. It's parental training. And so when he says in the scripture, these things speak, exhort, Titus 2:15, and reprove with all authority, that no one disregard you. It's an ask, tell, command approach. So here's the ask, which he doesn't get. He got a little bit. Here's the ask. Here's the tell. Here's the command. Okay? And if I'm consistent, which is principle-based training, every time I ask, he's going to know I'm going to follow through. The hardest part in parenting isn't the issue, isn't the understanding, it's the consistency of our life. No parent is as consistent as they profess to be. So then he backs up. Stinking horse, look at him, run away. Because he thinks I'm a judge and I'm a mean person, not a rewarder. But he's establishing my authority or his authority. So you see what's at stake here is the issue of faith. Who do I trust? When I'm confronted, he trusts himself and he moves in a negative way. Fine, not a problem. It's not my job to train a horse. I want you parents to understand it's never your responsibility to change your child. You do not have the authority over the heart. It is never your responsibility to make them grow. It is your responsibility to set moral boundaries on you so the horse can make healthier decisions. So the child can make healthier decisions. Because God does the increase, and only God does the increase. So you see, the problem I'm focusing on isn't the horse, it's on me, making sure I get the ask, the tell, and the command consistent. Now you notice where this horse is. He's down at this end because he called 911 equine. Help, they're killing me. That's why we don't give cell phones to our kids. Right, all the other worldly people give cell phones to their kids. It only calls in all the, oh, look, see, now he's really getting temperamental. Why? Because this is who the colt was all along. He's a selfish little brat. Good. Well, I'm not surprised. The only one surprised is the colt. There we go. Good. Now, the most important part that I'm doing isn't the action, it's the rest. Selah. Parents, busy parents. Stop! Whoa! Smell the roses. Make sure they understand that there was a decision they made in obedience that brought this rest. Associate cause and effect. Associate sowing and reaping. So that the child will know what they did. So they will see how this, now see what this, when I go after that hip, that heart, the colt not only backed up, but he dropped that shoulder to the left. So he, watch this. Okay? Now if you understand, you see this alignment against me? He says, well, all the other kids, all the other neighborhood. And he's starting to say, you always, you never. And he drops the shoulder, he puts the attitude in against it. You see, that way, then he crowds me again, just rude, but he's just ignorant, he's just a kid. So I don't need to use force on him, but I need to use consistency. Why? The more proactive I am with my exercises, the more the horse will make a consistent decision to stay out there and respect. Notice that my goal isn't to get him to go forward or backward. My goal is to get him to walk in fellowship. When two are agreed, there we go. Now, no, there, he responded to the ask. There, the tell. Ask, he's thinking about it. Good. Now you notice that his stride slows down. His reactions diminish. He doesn't throw a temper tantrum every time. He doesn't call 911, but he's still tempted to go back to an old habit where he got rewarded. Remember this, friend. Every habit you have in life is a rewarded, conditioned response. Every bad habit gets a reward. Otherwise, and sin has a reward. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so addictive. All sin, pouting, temper tantrums, drama queens, revenge, reviling, all of it gets rewarded. That's why it gets repeated. Whatever gets rewarded gets repeated. Let's say it together. Whatever gets rewarded. Whatever gets what?
Rewarded.
Gets
repeated.
Again. Whatever gets
rewarded.
Gets
repeated.
The only thing that changed the life is the reward, the release of pressure. So if this colt gets away by acting bad, he will do it again because there he starts to hear. So this deaf horse is starting to hear again. See the change in his demeanor? Notice the change in his reactions. Because he understands that this reproof is not rejection, it's empowerment. But he crowds because these people over here have bad breath or something. I don't know what it is. He's actually, you see, this colt will always do, his behavior will be visible to all based on whatever has the most dominant pressure in his life. And that's why the fear of God must bring wisdom. Because if he fears you more than he fears me, he will violate me to honor you. So when we fear the world, when we fear man, we will violate God to be safe. So how do I overcome that? I begin to practice the fear of God, the presence of God, the reward of God by obeying me in difficult positions. Whoa. So I expose him to this and I put him back to the very temptation, the very thing that intimidated him, and I reward him for honoring me. Remember, it's parents' first job to teach their children to honor them, not obey them. Obey them first, honor them second. And this is when the horse starts to honor me. All right, now I'm not going to spend all day with this colt, but I want you to understand, you notice that the relationship is a lot healthier because, number one, he becomes obedient. Number two, he becomes attentive. And when it comes down to simple infant training, young adult training, these are the two things you're looking for. First of all, obedience to my voice. But remember this, when there's not obedience, the first thing you question is if there's been an ask, tell, command process built in your life. Because two people will marry each other. One is the ask person, the other is the kill person. And that's what makes marriage fun. Parenting difficult. Now, I'm going to ask you for a whoa here. Whoa. Whoa. See, I never stop a horse with force. Because sooner or later the horse will be bigger than me. It's the I told you so stuff that works, right? Because I'm the boss. No, it doesn't work. Although you mean to say, because I'm the mother, because I'm the father, that's understood. Ask, tell. Now we need to do this on the other side with this colt, but we're not going to spend the time on that this morning. But I want you to watch this. So if I go down this line right here, not into the line, I say, whoa, stinking horse runs right through me. Why? Because I have not prepared him. I've jumped steps in my parenting skills where I've not prepared him for that. So I'm going to have to do a little more of this on the angle, but I'm going to, whoa, use the physical fence. So there are three fences in this horse's life: physical, relational, conscionable. So now when I get this, I'm going to say, whoa. He doesn't get it. Not a problem. Whoa. Not a problem. It's not my job to train a horse. Whoa. Good. You see, he made a different decision. He's allowed to make wrong decisions. Whoa. Whoa. It's not about my role as a parent. It's about my consistency. So I'm taking from a physical fence to a relational fence and think, boy, this guy is really dumb. He must have my husband's DNA. I don't know what the deal is. Whoa. 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 What's wrong with this horse? Whoa. Whoa. Not a problem. Not my job to train the horse. That is so important for us to understand. But it is my job to water and plant. It is my job to be consistent. It is my job to sacrificially, faithfully invest. But it's not my job to change the horse. Boy, does that free our relationships, maritally, family-wise. So I'm going to go back here a little bit. And notice that the more boundaries I put on the horse, the longer line I get. Notice how he was crowding me. You see how the relational dimension is taken because I've invested in him consistent. Now, if he comes in a little tight, he doesn't react to the reproof. He understands that reproof for life is the way of life.